All right, guys, welcome to episode 3. I'm here at Montana Coffee Traders in Whitefish, Montana, and we're partnering today to prove that roasting coffee is actually project management. Montana Coffee Traders is recognized as one of the best coffee distributors in Montana. They ship to restaurants, retail, and all over the country. So be sure to check them out. Let's go in and check out the roastery. All right, so I'm here with Heather and Zach. So Heather, tell us a little bit about Montana Coffee Traders.
So Coffee Traders has been roasting coffee here in the Flathead Valley since 1981. We started with one small location here, and then over the decades have added other locations, the coffee shops that people know in the valley, and we've also expanded our capacity as far as roasting and shipping. We do wholesale and e-commerce on the internet.
And what got you guys into coffee?
The owner of Coffee Traders, R.C. Beal, back in the 80s, was just interested. R.C. had moved here and was interested in sourcing some delicious coffee and realized there were no coffee roasters in our state at the time. So he got some equipment and learned how to do it and started sourcing beans from all over the world and was able to introduce in a very small community and in a very one-on-one personal format, because the Flathead Valley was so small at that point, what it was like to have fresh roasted coffee, where coffee came from. He introduced people to cowboy coffee or French press coffee back in the 80s. So it was just an experience that he got to really connect with the community over a wonderful product that people are pretty sentimental about. So.
All right, so Zach, you are the roast master and production manager. What does that mean?
I take the coffees that are sourced by our grain buyer, Allison Chop. I basically try to find the nuance in the coffees and adapt them to what I think our customers would most appreciate.
Okay, and what got you into coffee?
I have a food background and always loved coffee. And when we moved here, my wife's originally from Whitefish. We moved back about 10 years ago, and we would come here on vacation, and Coffee Traders was always something I loved, and they were hiring at the moment, so I applied, and that's it.
So we're getting started with looking at kind of what your roasting days look like and what you do when you're roasting coffee. What would you say you do initially to prepare? Do you have to buy supplies and make sure you have people staffed to do it? What's the prep process before we even go in?
So once again, Allie Chop, our grain buyer, sources all these coffees from around the world. A lot of them come from Royal Coffee out of Oakland, but we do have some direct connections and trades with a few of our growers. So first it's finding the coffees that taste good, then getting them in-house, which has been pretty tricky over the last couple of years just with shipping debacles all over the world. Once they're in-house, we then do a profile on them. I have a small little sample roaster over here. It's a bullet, and we figure out where we want that coffee to be, and then we take that recipe and then adapt it to our Loring and Civets roasters.
This is like the project management concept of the minimum viable product, or a proof of concept. So what they're doing is producing the smallest amount that they can to get some kind of feedback or taste it and figure out how they can adjust before they produce the larger amount or produce it in bulk. So remember, a minimum viable product isn't something we're going to go to market with or sell. It's just enough to get feedback. So that's what we're doing here, creating a smaller roast to get feedback and then producing the larger roast. So how do you know what you think is going to be a successful coffee to sell when you're tasting them like that?
So a lot of times it's just experimentation with our customers. A lot of times it's customers that are repeat buyers of certain origins. But when we find something that's really kind of wild and out there, we like to take that and create a new experience for our customer to kind of engage them more in what we do and what the coffee community as a whole is capable of doing.
So when you're roasting something, is it a one-person job? Do you have to have multiple people doing several things at once? How does it work?
We have a green loader coming at night, so they load the green beans for all the roast for the next day. So we have people write tags for everything that we're going to need to process the next day. And then a roaster comes in around 6, starts warming up the machines, and they kind of get started on their day.
All right. Yeah. Well, that sounds fun. Then let's get into the roastery and see how it works.
So these are our roasters. we have 2 loorings, which they're built in Santa Rosa. They're very on the cutting edge of environmental technology, so we consume a lot less CO2 when we're roasting with these machines because it's a closed cycle process. What's really cool about them as well is they have a built-in afterburner, so we are not putting a lot less pollutants up into the atmosphere. Our Civets roaster over here, it kind of looks like it's a beast. This is what the company was started on. Michael Civets is a roaster, or he built coffee roasters out of Corvallis, Oregon. It's a pretty interesting character, very well known in the coffee scene. And then we have a Probat, which is a German roaster right there that we're kind of playing around with. So the majority.
Do you use different machines for different ones, or how do you decide which one you're going to use?
We have a little bit more control with the loorings. So a lot of our single origins come off of these. Some of our more historical roasts that people have been used to tasting over the last 40 years.
Got it.
We kind of keep true to the tradition. And what's really nice is we were able to kind of up the weight in the loorings from 20 pounds to 65 pounds, so we can adjust how much we need to, so we're not over roasting for certain coffees, so everything's coming out nice and fresh.
So what about this one? When do you use this one?
This one we're still kind of playing around with. I haven't had a bunch of time to play with it, so hopefully later this fall or early in the winter we'll start pulling roasts off of it.
Okay.
So just a smaller batch roaster. You get like 13 pounds out of it after, so one of those things to be able to scale down a little bit more.
All right, so what are we doing today?
So we're going to roast an Ethiopian dark for part of our Espresso 81, our flagship espresso. And so I'm gonna.
If I didn't mention it, I'm a dark roast person,
right.
So this is very exciting to me.
Yeah, this one is. So this is what we do for espresso in all of our coffee shops. And so what we're gonna do is the beans in there are gonna suck up, so it's kind of cool to watch. And they.
Oh wow.
And then pull it in. So with these, what's cool is we can actually, we have profiles for all of our coffees. So it's basically, the curves are recipe. What I'm going to do is load up our African dark recipe. And another cool thing about these machines is we're able to run them manually, or we can automate the roasts.
That's cool. So what made you decide that you wanted to do this roast today?
We do a lot of 81, not just for our cafes, but we send out anywhere from 200 to 500 pounds of 81 every day.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of other cafes statewide and some people out of state as well use this as their espresso.
Yeah.
So in a second, this is kind of a cool one because you'll see this drop down and the coffee drops into the roast chamber. It's going to be, so in a roast, this cools down below our charge temperature, which is the temperature we charge the coffee into the roaster at. So when the coffee is in here, the roaster and the beans will eventually, after about a minute, start to climb in temperature together. So the radiation from the inside of this absorbs into the beans, allowing the coffee to move at the temperature that we're trying to push through the roaster.
And how many pounds of coffee beans did you say this one batch would produce?
This roast right here is 30 pounds, and it will, when it comes out, because of weight loss due to water and just the coffee, most of it's water loss, went up at about 25 pounds.
Okay.
And then that's blended with 3 other parts to make so we have a Central South American part and then 2 parts that are a blend. And it's gonna drop right down into here.
So this isn't even done at the point that this comes out. You've still got to blend it with other things at that point. Okay.
Yeah, so our blends are a year-round option that we have. So as with coffee being a crop, that starts to change. So what's cool about blends is we get to play with them to be able to create a profile that we'll be able to have year-round regardless of the parts slightly changing a little bit.
Yeah.
Where single origins, you're really looking to show what that bean, the inherent characteristics of that bean.
Okay.
So the roast is kind of broken down into 3 parts to keep it simple. The first part is the drying phase, where we're trying to wick away moisture from the coffee. So the coffee's about 12 to 14% moisture content. So what we're doing is trying to pull enough water off that we can then move into the next phase, which starts around 330, 340 degrees, which is the Maillard phase.
That's that again, it's the what phase?
Maillard. So it's named after someone. It's basically a browning effect, like when you toast bread and it goes from white to brown, or you fry something. That's that Maillard effect starting to take place. During that phase, the green coffee, which has about 300 aromatic compounds, can triple to close to about 900. So that's where you're, depending on how far or how long or how short you keep that Maillard phase. So you can make something really complex,
I see.
Or you can keep it really simple.
Yeah.
So like with our single origins, we try not to stretch that out because it can add more complexity to the coffee than we're looking for if we're looking to make it very straightforward.
Yeah. So there's like a risk whenever you over roast or you continue to do that process, you could end up with just something that didn't turn out with the profile you expected.
Right. So that's what's kind of nice about the little roaster, is I can do about a pound in that one.
Yeah.
So we're not running through 20 pounds of coffee at a time or 30 pounds to be able to try to figure out where it's going to come out.
So you've tested this on the smaller one to figure out exactly how you want it to taste, and then you come over here to say, all right, this is what we want to produce. Is that accurate? Okay.
Yeah. And with espresso, it's tricky too, because you're also roasting. The extraction is different from like a pour over coffee or a drip coffee, because you're using pressure to extract a very small amount of coffee and a very small amount of liquid, which has a lot of flavor.
Right.
So there's a lot of sciencey, geeky things, and then there's a lot of like art and craft to it. So it's kind of I think that's what makes it really enjoyable for me personally, and probably for a lot of other coffee roasters, is that you are creating something, but you get to use both sides of your brain.
Yeah. So was this one an espresso or just a dark roast?
This is going to be just a dark roast that we will then blend into the espresso.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah. So we try to create kind of different flavor profiles in that, so it's not all just coming out dark. So you're getting some of the sweeter, more caramely notes from the medium roast, and then the darker roast gives you that classic espresso, a little bit of a punch that pulls through milk.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. This is just fun to watch too.
It is. It's pretty hypnotizing, right?
Right. So how long does this part of the process take? What are we going to see next?
We're kind of starting to get to like a jadish kind of green color, and that's going to eventually start turning into like a yellow color, yellow to goldish brown, in about 2 minutes or so. And then as we progress through that Maillard phase, at some point, which happens about 400 degrees, give or take, we experience the last phase, which is first crack. So the bean is actually, as it's swelling, there's CO2 and other pressure and water, steam in there, trying to escape. So the bean physically fractures. It's hard to hear in this one. You can hear it in some of the other roasters, but it's like a pop. So it sounds kind of like popcorn.
Yeah.
At that point, that's when we start our development of the coffee. That's where the sugars are starting to brown a little bit more, and we can play with how short or how long we roast that coffee to create either a light roast or a dark roast.
Yeah, I have seen a much smaller version of a roaster, probably like more like a personal one, but it looks like a popcorn machine is the way that I would describe it.
We actually, when I first started, used a popcorn popper with a dimmer switch on it to sample roast on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you can control the airflow of it. So you heat it and then slowly turn down the airflow so the beans don't shoot out as they lose weight.
Yeah.
But we eventually moved to an Ikawa, which is it's a small sample roaster out of England. And it's a similar thing, so it's air heating it. That's, I guess, the difference between some of these roasters is this one is basically convection, so it's hot air in a chamber that's then that has an impeller pushing the hot air up into the roast, moving it very much like a popcorn popper. So it's wafted by heat waves, basically. Mm-hmm. With this, it's a similar thing. The burner is displaced, so it's back around this corner where the afterburner is as well. And what it does is there's fans that do a similar process to that, where it pulls the hot air in, and then there's a fan that pulls it back out. And as the cool air goes back into the cyclone, the chaff from the coffee and then all of the particulate or pollutants end up going back over over the burner as it heats up and burns everything off. So we burn smoke off, we burn as much off as possible.
And you can see the color change a little just there.
And what's kind of cool, at this point it starts to get like a bready smell to it. So this is a trier.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So it's I like it. It's kind of an intoxicating smell. I think it's one of the cool things about roasting too is you're able to take a product and see it completely transformed.
Right.
In 15 minutes, give or take.
So how many pounds of coffee beans do you guys keep here for this process?
We'll walk into the green room next.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot in there.
Yeah.
We have thousands and thousands of pounds. And we bring that in, depending on the time of year, weekly, sometimes in the slower time of year, every other week, but we're kind of pushing through quite a bit of weight, anywhere from 7,000 pounds on a slower time of year to 11,000 pounds in a week.
How many suppliers do you guys have for?
Like I said, Royal's one of our bigger coffee suppliers, and they've been around for quite a while. They're out of Oakland, California. We source coffee from a lot of small, direct people that work specifically with certain regions. So, 1 to 2 handfuls of people.
Yeah.
And then some of it's direct trade as well, where we have personal contact with people, and then that goes through, gets shipped out and it goes through I can't say it. Goes to someone else basically, and then they ship it to us. So,
okay. So you just call them up and say, hey, we need more of these shipped over, and they ship it, or how does it work?
If they have that. So a lot of it is, with coffee, you're buying ahead of actually receiving the product. So Allie, our green buyer, buys stuff that we will be using in 6 months from now.
Okay.
Because when the crop comes out, most people are still working through past crop coffees or just finishing up that. And so we're waiting for coffee to land that we might not even be using for 2 to 3 months. So she goes off past weights, how much blend we're going through, and buys those, like I said, in future purchases.
Okay.
And so a lot of the stuff, like our single origins, ones we do little small lots of, like 5 to 10 bags, it's kind of a one shot because the lots are so small versus larger commercial specialty growers. So like a lot of our new Ethiopian that we're running right now, I think we got 5 bags of that, and then there wasn't a whole lot left. It was from a small women's co-op out of Yirgacheffe in Ethiopia. So a lot of it is, like, if we taste it, we like it, we try to buy it as quickly as possible.
Okay. So you have to plan ahead quite a bit for when you want your beans available for
what they do a lot of times is they send pre-shipped samples, so before the coffee's actually left origin, so we can decide if we like it then, and then buy those bags even though they aren't physically here yet.
Okay. Wow, that's incredible. Takes a lot of time and thinking ahead, doesn't it?
So her job is all logistics, and she does an amazing job.
Yeah. You can see the color changing here, I noticed.
And we're starting to get kind of close to first crack, at like 10 degrees out. And what's cool...
That smells amazing.
Yeah, since we can't hear first crack because this thing is so thick, like it's basically insulated to keep all the heat in. We have to smell for it. So first crack has a byproduct of acetic acid, so it kind of smells like cider vinegar.
Huh.
So kind of like a little twinge of the nose.
Yeah.
So we mark that. We mark all when we hit Maillard and then when we hit first crack to make sure those are basically our quality controls. So we know the coffee's from this point on, we're gonna take it to crack in this amount of time, and then from first crack to the end of the roast.
Okay.
That way we know we hit a certain temperature, it's in there for a certain time, so that's how we find our consistency.
Yeah. So I assume the machine is going to alert you when it thinks it's done. Do you have to do something to make sure that you agree that it's done?
Yeah, so we watch at this point. If something isn't going to plan, we can drop it into manual and have the machine stop roasting it, and then we take control over the gas.
Okay.
So say, for some reason, if it decided to run too hot, we can drop that burner down and then figure out how to end the roast appropriately. But yeah, this one it'll beep a bunch, and then the cooler kicks on, and then it drops it. So we log everything. So these are our roasts we're doing today. Making sure that we hit crack and end of temp. And then we have also our recipes over here just to make sure everything is running correctly.
So what are some things that have gone wrong that you've had to adjust for?
With new coffees, they can be a little tricky taking them from the 1 pound roaster, the bullet, to this, because it is a larger machine and you have more volume in there, so the coffee can take off a little bit sometimes if you're giving it too much heat, or it can dip a little in ways you weren't expecting. Overall, someone's here monitoring it, so we're able to save most roasts. If something goes totally south, we set that coffee aside, we taste it, and if we can use it somewhere, we will, but if not, we food bank it and take it to the local food banks in the area.
Got it. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so everyone's kind of getting a piece of Coffee Traders and is able to, consume products that we create.
So a lot of while it's running, if you notice something is off, is it just going to be adjusting the temperature a little or pulling it early, something like that?
Yeah, so the thing is the development time is really important. So we'll give or take a couple degrees if we need to go a little bit longer or a little bit shorter. For the time the coffee spends in there color's really important, but making sure that coffee tastes the way it's supposed to is the most important.
Yeah. So if it comes out and you realize it's just wrong, then you've got to figure out what can we do with it, or do we donate it?
Yeah, so we'll taste it. If anything, like I said, is particularly wrong, we wouldn't want to put it into a coffee or a blend or anything like that to make it. So we're trying to create a consistent flavor profile. So would taste it, and if it is a couple degrees short, and it tastes like it tastes, and also
there it goes.
Yeah. If we do have a mistake, we also taste it, but have a color track. So we put it through a color analyzer. And if we're not within a point or two of what our mark is supposed to be, we won't use it in a blend or sell it for that matter.
Have you ever had one that comes out differently than you expect, but you're like, ooh, I like that better?
Yeah, especially early on, where you're like, okay, I didn't hit my end mark, but the little bit higher temp on some coffees created a little bit more of a sweet roast. And so it wouldn't be anything that would be drastically different, because we wouldn't want the consumer on the end to be like, why did I buy this time and taste it this way versus why is it tasting this way now? So we try not to change too much of it throughout the process.
Yeah.
In some of our blends, as the coffee starts to age throughout the year, we'll make adjustments to make sure that coffee is on point with how it was tasting originally. But so nothing too crazy.
Yeah. Risk management. We have risk management working with the coffee roastery. So what we've got here is what happens if things don't go well? What do we need to adjust? What can we do to fix it? If we really can't fix it, what can we do to still get something out of that anyway? Even if what we get isn't maybe as much as we had hoped. And then it's also an opportunity. What if it happens to turn out better than we expect? What can we do with it then to be able to utilize or sell that product? How can we adjust? So I have a risk management plan in place for, can we adjust it? Can we fix it? If we can't, what do we do with it? Or if we can't, but it turned out well, how can we take advantage of that opportunity? So what's happening right now?
So right now the coffee's cooling down. All the heat's being sucked out of here and up through another stack. We take it so it's about body temperature. So we're not getting any of that carryover roasting. It takes about 5 minutes.
So how many of these do you have to do today?
Today, Wednesdays during the slower season or shoulder season are a little bit smaller days with the park closed, because we generally do a lot of our park accounts on Wednesday. Today, it looks like we did about 15 of them on this guy. And then on the larger roaster, I believe we did about 10 on that one and about 10 on this guy.
All right. Are there times where you have like all of these machines running at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, first thing in the morning, these take about 45 minutes to an hour to heat up. That one, we do a quick heat up on it, a warm up, and then we're able to start roasting. And these roasts are anywhere from like 10 to 11 minutes because it's just a slightly different process. It's just much quicker based off of the style of the machine.
And are you usually the running around to all the machines while they're running, or are there other people in here
I
with you?
have two other roasters in here,
Okay.
Micah and Kim, and they're generally doing most of the production roasting. I pop in here on busier days to help out, make sure everything's going the way it should be. But I do spend time in here, especially if people are out on vacation and whatnot.
So are they showing up later today to run these other ones too then?
No, Micah got here at 6, so he roasted through our day's production.
So you guys got started early. All right.
So a lot of times, like Monday, we didn't finish roasting till 2.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of dependent on, on Wednesday, our local delivery is Big Fork, and it's a little slower this time of year for everyone just because it's the shoulder season.
Oh yeah,
But,
so you roast about 3 days a week? Is that what you said?
No, 4 days a week.
4 days a week?
Yeah, Monday through Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of coffee to go through in 4 days.
Yeah, right.
No wonder you have so many beans.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's lots and lots of coffee. So this is our green storage room. We do organic coffees, which we keep all in green buckets because we have certain regulations for organic certifications. We have to keep track of each bag and the number of the bag. So that each farmer has, and each country has a number allotted to the country, allotted to the farmer, and then the number of the bag in the lot. So we track all that. So when the organic certification audit comes through every year, we can account for where all this coffee goes.
Okay.
All of our conventional coffees are in blue. We're roughly about 2/3 of our weight is conventional and about 1/3 is organic. And it's kind of been that way for as long as I've been here. So it's stayed pretty steady. And we have...
What are the black ones?
The black one was just when we couldn't get blue ones.
I got it. Okay.
But yeah, so we never use those for the organics, just on the conventional side. They get kind of beat up after a little bit because we're dumping coffee into them and they start to break. But yeah, so we have the majority of our blends kind of closer together on this side. Keep our smaller lots or single origins back on this side. We got a lot of fun ones right now. We got Guatemalan coffee. Like I said, we have a new Ethiopian from a women's co-op in Yirgacheffe. Mono Verde, which is a partnership coffee that we do. And then we keep our decaffeinated coffee slightly separate as well.
Over
just
here
to
on
make
its
sure.
own.
Yeah. Just kind of makes it easier for everyone to know the room.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is package and labeling, it looks like.
Yeah, so coffee, after it gets roasted, gets put into a clean bucket, which we mark differently than we put X's on all of our green buckets, and these are all our roasted buckets. So coffee gets in here.
Oh,
and
man,
then,
that smells so good too.
Isn't it awesome?
Yeah.
And then for quality control and also to make sure everything's coming out the way it is, there should be, we weigh all the coffee after. So like this was a 65-pound roast of green coffee that went in, and it yielded a 54.7 for this part of our...
So how much did it start as?
65 pounds.
65, okay, so it lost about 10 pounds then. All right.
And this is also we're using this as part of our Espresso 81. So this will be one of the blend components.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so coffee gets over here, weighed, set over here, and then the blender. So this is our blending area. So this is our blending and staging area. This is where the blender is basically running the day. The day before, we scan all of our orders, these barcodes, to be able to tell us how much of everything we need. And then we take, she takes everything from yesterday and then breaks it down into how many bags of each thing we need. We're finishing up in a special order for someone right there, which is our YPR for Yellowstone Public Radio. So they figure out what coffees need to be ground, how much of each coffee needs to be ground, how much needs to be put on the wall, and how much coffee needs to go out. So coffee, after she figures out all that fun stuff, heads over here. And this is our, it's a destoner. It's also like basically, we pour the coffee in there, it catches any little bits of stone that might be left in the green coffee. We tend to find rocks sometimes because it sits on a patio, basically.
Okay.
So they rake it as it dries. So
Got
you
it.
get
That
little
makes
bits
sense.
of stuff in that
Yes.
process. Most of
This
it,
is like your quality control part, huh?
yeah. And we have a bunch of magnets in the roast room as well, like in the hoppers, just to try to catch anything. Like someone found a Kenyan coin a little
I
bit
was gonna
ago.
ask- This was something that surprised me, that I found very interesting and cool, the amount of quality control that goes into producing coffee. So they actually run it through magnets so they can catch anything like a coin that may have accidentally gotten into the coffee to make sure that it doesn't get out to you guys. Or this destoner to remove any stones from the coffee. You know, we've seen plenty of situations where places have to do recalls later on because these impurities did show up that weren't supposed to be there, and sometimes they even cause injury. So this gives them that ability to check everything beforehand to make sure that what goes out to you is of the quality they expect. And this saves a lot of time and money later on, right? Because we're putting in the rules and the processes up front to control the quality so that we can save ourselves the trouble of having to deal with it later on. If they go in and have to do a recall on all of these bags of coffee because something made it into it that shouldn't have, it's time consuming, it's costly, it hurts their reputation, and there's a lot of negative consequences of that. So this gives them that ability to fix all of those things beforehand so that what goes out to you is exactly what's supposed to go out to you, which is really part of our quality control principles, which I thought was really cool.
You do find random stuff, it's crazy. So coffee gets sucked up. Cool. So there's a little vibration, basically vibrates the weight into the hopper right here. So then hits a little pedal, gives it a little tamp, and it heads through the sealer. All of our whole bean coffees go through these band sealers. Anything that is going to be ground gets set aside and is grabbed by our support person. All these will get put into a bin and we'll put a roast date on them. Everything's dated, just so people know how fresh their coffee is. That's important to us.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of coffee can sit on shelves for quite a while. So
if someone buys coffee today, how long ago is it probably roasted?
a lot of this will ship out today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's
in our
incredible.
grocery as well, most of the coffees that are going into faster moving grocery stores
Yeah.
are getting rotated out almost every week.
And you guys supply to retailers, restaurants, even people out of state order from you guys?
Yeah, other cafes, a lot of grocery on this side, and a lot in, so we do, a lot of the Flathead, Helena, Missoula, Bozeman, but it's kind of more Western Montana.
So they just call you up and say, hey, we need this shipped over, or how does it work?
So they,
Okay.
I'll show you the pick ticket. So they create an order upstairs with their customer service. That then gets invoiced, and then we use those to scan at the end of the day. So like we work, basically today we'll be tallying the needs for tomorrow.
Okay.
So we scan those, and it gives us a total of everything, and that's how we know how much we need to roast tomorrow. And then those orders will be fulfilled tomorrow and shipped out. And so if it's usually on this side and it's UPS, most grocery stores will get it the next day.
Wow.
Yeah, 1 to 2 days. It's
Yeah.
pretty quick. If we are going to be grinding coffee, get set aside right here. So we have our organic grizzly blend that needs a cone grind on it. So we just basically make a little mark on there to know what specification of grind it needs.
Okay.
And a lot of these are more so for e-commerce accounts.
Yeah.
So this guy. And we have, once again, for organic certifications, we specify which grinders we use for organic and what we use for conventional. So we're gonna go to our specialty grinder. This just has settings for Turkish grind, espresso, cone, French, and toddy. So we're gonna put that in there. Set this guy here. Make sure it's on cone. We're gonna turn it on. We also have magnets in here to make sure if anything did make it through, it's not going into our grinders and it's not going into people's ground coffee. So, shut this off. This is one of our impulse sealers, so we just make sure it's sealed.
So what's the difference in like a cone grind versus any of the others?
Cone is going to be, so cone is finer than a drip coffee, like what most people use for like at-home coffee pots and stuff. Espresso is really fine because we're trying to extract a lot more out of it. So the finer you grind it, the more extraction you get. French is going to be, French and toddy are pretty coarse. Toddy being more coarse than the French because the toddy will sit longer. Usually most people do cold brew. It's like a 12 to 20 hour process depending on your recipe. And with French ground, use a coarser grind because you're letting the coffee actually sit in the water. And then as you extract it, it doesn't push. When you compact it, it does not extract as much because it doesn't get through the filter.
Okay.
So French press is an immersion process. So the coffee is actually sitting in the water instead of sitting in the filter. Where with filtered coffee, once the water goes through, all of that ground coffee is left in the filter. Where with the French press, it's at the bottom, being pressed down. So you're using a coarser grind to get the proper extraction without the coffee continuing to extract once it's pressed.
That makes sense. This falls into the project management concept of understanding how something is going to be used in order to determine how it's going to be built, because that can change how you would build a solution. So in this case, they want to know what the best way is to use that coffee so that they can get it into the right end result or the right grind to be sent to you to be used in that French press versus being used in a drip coffee.
A little lower. So this is for a drip grind. This is going out for an account. That last little bit just helps get any coffee that might be sitting up inside here just back into the bag. Seal this guy. Take this one on over here. So this is our organic backstock. This is a lot of stuff any coffee that we don't use today gets put onto here. Like I said, like all this Montana morning will be gone tomorrow. Most of these coffees, most of our blend coffees we brew or send out pretty quickly. Single origins may take a week to go out, but everything's generally pretty fresh.
Yeah.
On this side, it's our conventional. So here's our 81. This will all be gone by the end of the day as they're building up orders over here.
Yeah. So we've got buying all of our supplies, planning our roasting day, roasting our coffee, packaging, and then shipping out or stocking in the store. So there's a lot that really goes into doing this.
Yeah, it's a lot of process, especially trying to create the flow.
Yeah.
So for efficiency, so you're not.
How long did it take for you guys to figure out what this whole flow was going to be to make this efficient?
We actually, we'll show you over here. The production used to be outside of here. So this actually happened about 7 years ago that we moved over to here with FSMA, which is the Food Safety Modernization Act that I think Obama put into play in like 2015. It kind of changed the accountability of food manufacturers to create processes and safety. I guess knowing what your hazards are, making sure you're treating food in a way that is safe. So for the end consumer, we don't want anyone to get hurt. So this took a bit of time, and I've reworked it a few times. Mostly in this direction though, because the coffee comes out up there.
So you got to have some very clear roles too, I imagine, around who's doing what roast and then how it gets moved around and who's packaging what.
Yeah, so all of our organic stuff goes through first. Everything's cleaned down at the end of the day to meet those organic certifications, and then all organic goes through, and then after that, conventional. So yeah, planning what's going out, if we need more coffee, to make sure that the baggers are starting on our conventionals if they need more organic. Because if we do need to go back to doing organic, we need to go through that whole wipe down process again. So it kind of slows things down. All this coffee over here is our 12-ounce backstock coffees. So like this morning, which I keep kind of going to, this was roasted yesterday, and this is the first to go out. And I believe all of this, so we work top to bottom, top to bottom. This is all yesterday's roast. So we'll see this probably gone by the end of the week for sure.
This is where I know a lot of you are going to want to argue with me, that this is a business operational process and not a project, that it's day-to-day activities that they do, keeping the lights on. But I would disagree, because it does have a start date, an end date, and a goal, right? We have to plan. We have to order the coffee beans, find the distributor, set up the supplier, get those beans in, make sure that we get them in time to do all of this work to be able to deliver them so we're not just running out. Make sure we know when we need them. Then we have to plan to have the people there to do the roasting, the machines ready to go, the roasting process with the actual process and recipe to get that roasted. So there's a lot that goes into this from start to finish, and there is a start date, an end date, and a goal. So I would argue that these are smaller scoped projects, more so than operational processes. This is incredible. Do you ever get tired, though, of smelling coffee?
No.
Because it smells amazing in
No,
here.
I love my job.
Okay.
I haven't been able to say that about most of the jobs in my life, but
Yeah.
I really love my job.
No, this is incredible.
Yeah, I have a great group of people to work with. Production team's amazing. My little team that I work with is our coffee educator, Katie Carlson, and Allie Chop, who's our green buyer, which I mentioned before. And we're kind of more on the tasting side of it, and the planning side, and how we're going to roll out roasts and do different things. And so this is a lot of fun, though, too. It's nice to be able to start a process at the beginning of the day and finish it, and then start again the next day. I know it might sound, that's not everyone's cup of tea to do the same thing.
Cup of coffee.
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah, it's not everyone's cup of coffee. To kind of do a repetitive process, but like I said, it's I don't know, it's something I feel very passionate about and love, and the fact that people get a taste, not just what we do to the coffee, but what the coffee community in general is able, like all the people that are involved in that. Like there's so many hands, hundreds and hundreds of hands that touch a cup of coffee, and it's cool that it's something people make a ritual out of their everyday, and it's I don't know, like being part of someone's like daily process is kind of a cool feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you guys get your logos designed for all of these?
It's a process. We work with the graphic design team. In the past, a lot of that was done in-house, but most of the labels we have are a few years old, so we haven't done a redesign in a while. But it's like our French roast, a lot of these are we've had for quite a bit. Like the Montana Morning we've had for quite a while, and a lot, like the idea of it sounds cool to change your packaging and labeling, but then it's hard for people to remember who you are, or like did something happen, did someone buy them, did something change?
Right.
Like our Grizzly blend has been,
or if you forgot the name, but you know there's a bear on it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also just kind of fun for people, you know, especially if people that are in town visiting, to be able to take something that has a little bit of character from the area and take it back home with them. And that's how we get a lot of our, I would say a lot of our web orders are basically people who've come to Whitefish or the area of Glacier and are able to continue experiencing what they experienced here in a different place.
Yeah. This is incredible, and just seeing what the whole process is from start to finish and how much time and planning gets gone into this, not to mention how much time I'm sure it took to get this process so smooth and so efficient is amazing.
It's been fun. I like problem solving.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was incredible. Thank you so much for showing me around, Zach, and it was awesome to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
And I can't wait to get out front actually and buy some coffee myself today.
Awesome.
So,
well, I can help you with that too. So
awesome. And there you have it, guys. Can you believe how much actually goes into roasting day at a coffee roastery? The coffee is absolutely amazing. I've got some to take home, several bags. I'll let you guys know how it is and which one's my favorite. But did you see all of the processes, all of the efficiency that they put into place, all of the steps that they have to take from the point they're ordering coffee to roasting, to bagging, to producing, to making sure it goes out to customers, making sure they have the staff, the roles and responsibilities, people know what they're supposed to do and when, and not to mention stakeholders, making sure that they know who is going to want what and how much they need to make and have available. It's pretty incredible when you think about it, isn't it? That's how roasting coffee is actually project management. All right, guys, stay tuned. We've got some more of these coming up.